is your guide to book publishing. Everything you want to know but didn't know what to ask. With your host, Dr. Judith Briles. On the show today, you'll find out where book publishing is going and how to take advantage of it. How to identify and avoid publishing predators. What opportunities are emerging as the book trade evolves in new forms. How to avoid losing money, and much, much more. Join us now as a variety of publishing pros will deliver insights and strategies to take the author to the next level of publishing. It's your guide to book publishing. Everything you want to know but didn't know what to ask. Brought to you by AuthorU and the Book Shepherd. And now, here's your host, Dr. Judith Briles.
Well, welcome to our August finale, where we are celebrating authors who are at multiple stages of their journey. Some you've heard me use the phrase long in the tooth, and have been really out here for several years and have their shares of great glory and probably some wonderful roller coaster dives. But what we're going to do is go through with a series throughout the month of individual authors who have really experienced from the beginning and everything else that they're doing, which makes a huge, huge difference in their success. So that's very exciting to me.
You're welcome.
So with that said, we're going to jump on. And with me today is the fabulous, amazing, multi-award winning author, and who has made the difference in so many readers' lives, Lynne Hellerstein, or I should say Dr. Lynne Hellerstein. Her very, 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 very first book was See It, Say It, Do It. And that from that, other babies started birthing. So then came along an action guide, or let's say the accompanying workbook saying See It, Say It, Do It, Organize It. And then out of that, because we're going to talk about repurposing with Lynne, because she is a master at it, 50 tips to improve your sports performance. And her latest and greatest is Expand Your Vision Beyond Sight. So just with some of her titles, you can tell she is all about vision. And that comes from her trade. She is really one of the top ophthalmologist, and she's responsible for getting my vision back after a fall so I could read once again, because that was a disaster for a while. But what she's done is she's taken her work now and translated it for kids, for adults, for athletes, you name it. It's all about the vision and it's about the mind. And with that, Lynne, welcome to AuthorU, your guide to book publishing.
Well, thank you, Judith. Great to be here.
It is great to have you here. All right. So I wanted you to kind of jump into some of your work and your personal journey that you had in the process. What year did you publish your first book?
2009.
Wow.
It's actually 2010. It came out a couple months early, so it's officially published 2010.
I can't believe that was 9 years ago.
I know. How time has flown by, huh?
I'll never think of trail mix the same. All right. So.
That's a nutty joke. Go ahead.
Yeah. Lynne and I worked on her book through big bags of trail mix as we created
That's right.
it. All right. So let's talk about, how did you find your path for writing?
Well, it's really interesting. I'm a developmental optometrist, and what that is somebody who's really dedicated, especially to the development of vision. And my real interest was with pediatrics, and that's evolved into working with special needs patients and adults with brain injury and athletes and sports vision. But I was all about my practice and helping people see better through vision therapy and special lenses and prisms. And throughout my practice for well over 40 years, I was always interested in speaking to educators, other optometrists, other medical people, parents, athletes, coaches, etc. And I remember that I gave a lecture to my national organization about visualization. It was an all-day lecture, and I just so vividly remember finishing it and go, wow, this is really great stuff, and none of it's written for other people to really utilize. There's bits and pieces in other books and articles, but the way I put it together, I just thought I had discovered something quite unique. But I truly disliked writing. And I said to myself, somebody better write this down, but it's not going to be me. I mean, that was, talk about, heading into my future. And so that was in October. In December, a couple of my friends and family and I went to a course called Never Work Again, and it was about creating passive income. And one of the things they spoke about is writing books, and that everybody had a book in them. And I go, no, you're wrong. I have another speech. I have another talk. I don't have a book. I don't have a book. And by the end of this lecture, I had a book in me. And my comment was, oh, you know what? What am I going to do? I have this book inside of me and I don't want to write it. So I thought I'm not like many of your authors who love to write and have always wanted to write a book. It just never was a desire. Sharing the information for me was through speaking. But once I got this book inside of me, I'm the kind of person, once it's in me, somehow I have to find a way to get it out. And so I wrote a friend of mine who's a wonderful creative writer and writes books on visualization, and she's a psychologist. And I thought, well, maybe she and I could write a book together. And so she said, sure. She was going to Mexico, said, call her in a few months and we'll see about writing a book together. Well, during those 3 months, my head was ready to explode because chapters were forming, ideas, stories. And so it just, came out of me, literally. I mean, every morning it woke me up at 4 a.m. I'd write this book, have a new chapter 4 a.m. And by the time my friend came back, I showed her my quote book, and she said, oh, this is your book. This is not my book. I said, well, I don't know where to go from here, because I really thought I had completed my book. I thought it's ready for a little editing and it's ready to be published. And my friend's comment was, oh, this is really a good start. And I said, a good start? I'm done. I don't have anything else to say. And she said, oh, no. You need much more personal stories and information. And I was just at a loss where to go from here. And at that time is when she referred me to you. Mm-hmm. And she said, see, Judith Briles. And I said, who's that? And she said, a book shepherd. And I said, what's that? And that was in January of 2009. And so I made an appointment, and I ended up, I believe, your first client of your new business of book shepherding.
And our full-time business at that time, yeah.
That's right. And so, I didn't know anything about the writing field. I didn't know anything about editing, publishing, marketing. I just knew my material. And what happened, my goal was, because I didn't really even know anything about book publishing, my goal was to finish my book before October of 2009, because I was asked to give a keynote at my international conference that just happened to be held in Denver, which is where I'm from. So you said that should work out fine. And so we set off on this quest together to complete my entire book. It was like giving birth to a baby in 9 months. Mm-hmm. And we started out by hiring some people for content editing and helping, which by June, I did not even have a first draft.
Yeah, that was awful.
That was awful. And I remember going into your office, crying, going, I hate this idea. I'm not writing this book. I'm done with this. And you sat me down and said, no, you're not. And that's when we started working together almost every night.
Yeah. Well, that's how we were living on trail mix, everyone. And I think one morning went to 2 a.m. One of our mornings.
Yep. And no matter what time we'd finish, and I'd go home late at night, 4 a.m, the next download of information would come to me. I'd write it up, and then we'd edit it. And this went on good part of the summer. And then, believe it or not, by August, we were ready for printing. We had a whole schedule, where if I was needing a book in October, when we needed it finished and edited and go through all the process. So it was time for printing. And if you recall, we sent it all to the printer and they ran out of paper.
Yes.
Which was, how does a printer run out of paper? So, there were obstacles after obstacles. Somehow they found some paper, and my books arrived 1 week before my talk.
Right. And everyone, Lynne, how many books did you sell at your first signing?
Well, again, not knowing anything about this business or how you really sell books. I mean, as a doctor, we're not in the business necessarily of selling books. You were out of town, and because it was in Denver, my kids brought a table, and my organization never allowed any authors to sell books. And I talked to them about it, and that's the thing that people were doing now. And so my organization changed the rules and said, fine, any keynoters that want to sell books can sell books. So my kids put up a table outside of the lecture hall, and they moved the table wherever the conference was, the exhibit hall. So they just followed me around, literally. And by the end of the conference, I had sold 900 books. And I called you and I said, I sold 900 books. How does that seem? And little did I know that was a big deal. It was a big accomplishment.
It's a huge deal. It's a huge deal. But, Lynne, what you're doing is you reinforce, I've said this so many times, the number one way to sell books is by speaking and being present. And that's that influence factor that people, one, if they like what they hear, if you make that connection, they want to take you home. And that if you have your books there, they will go home with them. If you don't, and they say, well, I'll look you up, their intentions are extraordinarily good. But the reality is life gets in the way, and a very small fraction will look you up. So you carry your books with you. You got to do those things. With that said, hold on to your thought, Lynne. We're going to go take our first break, and then we'll be coming back. With us is Lynne Hellerstein. She's the author of See It, Say It, Do It, plus 3 other amazing books, all bestsellers, all award-winning. We'll be right back.
This is your guide to book publishing. Everything you want to know but didn't know what to ask. With your host, Dr. Judith Briles. And we'll be right back with more great information right after these.
Is there a book in you or another? AuthorU shows you how to create, develop, and publish your book without being hoodwinked. If you already have a book out, you will find a supportive and brainstorming community that is connected and creative, no matter where you live. AuthorU brings in national experts for its book camps and annual AuthorU extravaganza. It has regular meetings and delivers webinars for its members on timely topics. Through AuthorU's extensive network, members enjoy exclusive benefits, including significant discounts for a variety of services necessary to publishing. AuthorU is the premier authoring resource in the country, creating community, education, guidance, vision, and success for the serious author. If you want to create a book that has pizzazz, punch, and panache, AuthorU is for you. Timely author and publishing tips and articles are posted on its social media platforms, and it is free. Discover AuthorU, where authors go to become seriously successful. Join AuthorU today at AuthorU.org.
First impressions are everything in the world of book publishing. Whether your book is an ebook, a print version, or both, your book cover needs to pop, sizzle, and sparkle to immediately capture the attention of your audience. And your book's interior needs to be just as dynamic and reflect the professionalism your readers demand. Nick Sellinger of NZ Graphics has won numerous national and international book awards for his cover designs and interior layouts. With over 20 years of experience in graphic design, he knows what it takes to create award-winning books and the many promotional pieces that authors need, such as posters, banners, postcards, one-sheets, business cards, logos, and more. Visit ncgraphics.com and see what authors and publishers have to say about their award-winning books and how NZ Graphics can make your book the success it was meant to be. That's nzgraphics.com.
Are you confused about publishing options? Do you know which printing option is best for your book? Does your stomach flip when you think about selling books? Or do you feel overwhelmed with what to do about book marketing and publicity? Get the answers and much more. Get them and from someone who knows publishing inside and out from both the traditional and independent sides, how to make a successful book. You can't do it alone without paying the price. You can spend your money creating a book that turns out to be so-so, or you can create a book that looks and feels classy, builds your brand and platform, and is a success, a bestseller. It is your choice. You choose. If you want author and publishing success, you want Judith Briles as your book coach. Sign up for her weekly blogs and e-zine at thebookshepherd.com.
Welcome back to your guide to book publishing. Everything you want to know but didn't know what to ask. If you want to write and publish a book, if you want to be successful as an author, your guide to book publishing, everything you want to know but didn't know what to ask, is for you. Stay tuned and you'll hear about statistics, scenarios, and strategies on what to do now to get you published. So let's get back to the show. And here again is your host, Dr. Judith Briles.
With me today is Lynne Hellerstein. She is the author of several books. She has been quite successful, and she's done them in all different sizes, by the way. That where she had a bigger one in the 7x10. Was that the size of it, Lynn? 7x10. The first See It, Say It, Do It.
7x9.
7x9. 7x9.
Yeah.
And her latest book is a 5x7. And this is your second book, I think, you've done in the smaller size, is it not?
Yes, both the sports and Expand Your Vision are both small books.
And they're both small books, which I'm telling all of you, people love the small books. They're highly portable. They can tuck them in. And actually, Lynn's book, the sports book, was a total repurpose from the See It, Say It, Do It, with just a few goodies added on, if I'm not correct. Is that right, Lynn?
That is correct. Right.
Right. So when you write that master book, all of you, you may have a little book in you that you can come out with a new title, a new marketing strategy, and run with it. And you don't have to go through the agony and eventually the ecstasy that Lynn did in getting her first book out on that. All right. So let me get involved why are you writing your books? You're still continuing to write. Did you think that the first one, See It, Say It, Do It, which is, I remembered when we came up with that title in my conference room, it just came out. That was it. Did you think that was going to be the only book?
Yes, because throughout my whole writing process, it's just, I've had so much resistance to writing. But once there's something in my mind, for example, the Organize It workbook, that came about because of need. Many of our patients wouldn't do their home therapy that they were supposed to practice on, or they wouldn't do their schoolwork or their chores. And using the See It, Say It, Do It process, visualize, declare, and take action. The taking action is like a to-do list, but many of the kids wouldn't do the to-do list. It's not their list, it's the parents' list. Mm-hmm. And so if we went through the See It, Say It, Do It process, visualize, for example, what would it be like to be finished with your homework? Declare it, I'm done, and then you do the action. They would then do their chores. And we had great success. And so the workbook really came about from a need in my practice of not only just for the therapy, but really to help kids accomplish things. The 50 Tips book came across. It's been really frustrating. I've been in my practice for well over 40 years and still trying to teach parents that there's more than 20/20 and how the vision impacts learning. It's still, most people have never heard of the kind of work we do. So I decided, well, I love sports, and there's a part of my field called sports vision where we actually work with all the way to major league athletes to improve their vision. Just like you'd improve their strength and their speed, you can improve their vision. And the CHA Do It process and all our vision work fits right in there. And I thought, well, what if I just did a little sports book so the coach or an athlete could put it literally right in their back pocket or in their gym bag and do a visualization before their sports, or do a whole team on how to fixate and breathe and relax and things like that. And so this way I knew I'd attract a lot more fathers and men, and still get, my real mission is to get billions of people to understand the importance of vision and how it impacts their lives, and that you can really train and expand your vision. And so the sports book was just another way to get to like a different niche of population to, share my message. And so each book came out of like this need of what's next to get my message across. Because it's never been about, I want to write, 4 books or 6 books. I thought I was done with each book until something new came into my mind, and then there was another book. And
I know, they breed. I've always said books breed.
They seem to do that. I don't know how big the family is going to be.
So I'm curious. Your latest book is a little bit different. I mean, I certainly recognize some of the stories, the variation of stories that you brought into them. How's that being received with your new audiences?
So this was interesting. My 4th book, Expand Your Vision Beyond Sight, was really different than my others. It's not about giving tools and strategies and techniques as much as sharing patient stories of how they really got through either severe learning problems or brain injuries or social or emotional kinds of things, that they were able to see beyond what people told them, like you'll never drive, or you'll never hit a baseball, or you can't do this because of your vision problems. And we're looking at vision both inside and out. Really, does your vision inside your mind match to what you see going on in your world outside? And so many of us, it doesn't match. And where I'm at in my field now, this is really my real passion of visualization and integrating this internal and external vision. I wrote this book really for myself to help clarify where I want to go next in sharing my message, and looking at bigger audiences and stages to speak, and creating a nonprofit, and I really wrote this book as my first step on what's next for me. Not knowing what's next, I sat and wrote that book to try to help organize and set me in a direction of where I'm going next. So it's really different than my other 3 books.
It is different. So, and I guess I should say, where are you going next? Do you know?
Well, if I could share a quick story, I wrote this book because I was asked to give a lecture in front of 700 people at a conference, and it was only a 15-minute lecture, and which is probably the hardest lecture to give. What are you going to tell 700 people in transformation? What are you going to tell them in 15 minutes that will have an impact? And so I really worked on that, and it was called Expand Your Vision Beyond Sight. And I had a slide in there right at the end that had this beautiful woman in flowing clothes, kind of standing on the sand near an ocean, looking out into the beautiful sea and sky, saying, what's next? Asking myself that question. And at that moment, it was like time stopped. It's like the old cartoons where they used to be fighting and then they'd stop and they'd have this conversation above it. It was exactly like that. And it was like, I forgot I was in front of people. I didn't even know where I was in the lecture. I'm looking out, and all of a sudden this big canvas comes down in front of me with a huge paintbrush, that it was now my choice to paint what's next. Now, it's interesting, I don't paint. I don't know how to paint. But it was like, here's what's next. All I have to do is see it, say it, and do it, because that's what's next for me. Well, this was like truly such an inspirational moment for me. All of a sudden, I looked down and noticed I was out of time. And I thought I'd better finish this lecture first before I start painting. And so I finished the lecture, and it was very well received. But I was always curious, how long was I in pause there? for one of the
Whoa.
biggest transformational moments in my life. How long was I sitting there or standing there in front of 700 people? So I looked at the video, a couple weeks later, and you don't even see me take a breath at that moment that this whole happening occurred.
Wow.
I mean, this was like, I know, it was like this lightning flash of what's next. All I have to do is see it, say it, and do it, which is really the process I write about: visualize, declare, and take action.
Mm-hmm.
And it's up to me. And so that's where I'm at. I seem to be resistant to picking up the paintbrush right now, because I know when I start painting, things manifest. And, there's one message for the authors is see it, say it, do it. It doesn't have to be in that order, but if you can see end result and declare you're a writer or whatever you want to declare, then the steps aren't the torture part anymore. But if you're missing any of the see it, say it, do it process, and you're just writing without a vision of where you want to go or declaration. I used to always, I'd see my book and take the steps, but I'd always say, I'm not a writer, I'm not a writer, I'm not a writer. And nothing happened until I could somehow find a way to declare about myself being a writer. And I'm really at that point again. And every book's kind of challenged me back at that same process, because I know it'll manifest as soon as I go through this process, however I go through the process.
However you go through the process. So that's kind of exciting. I'm so glad you shared that, really, because, that kind of ties into all your passion and where that comes from, the whole thing, because you're really opening up vision. To me, vision ties in with passion.
Yeah, it is. That's really an interesting way of looking on that.
Yeah, I mean, I've always told people that when you're building your platforms, you've got to have your, what is your vision? Vision comes into it. What's your passion that drives the vision? Passion drives vision for me. And then you have to look at, so what's your commitment? So now you're talking about, okay, so there's a process you go through. You bring in that commitment. For me, I always look at, what kind of time is this going to take for me to incorporate all this? And how much energy can I put into it? And what kind of money, if I need money, to bring it about. So those all come into play for me. Yeah,
and too often people get stuck in, I don't have the money, I don't know how to do something, into the do-it process.
Yeah, hold that thought, and we'll come back. We're going to take one more break. We'll be right back. Dr. Lynne Hellerstein's with us.
This is your guide to book publishing. Everything you want to know but didn't know what to ask. With your host, Dr. Judith Briles. And we'll be right back with more great information right after these.
Discover the power of you and your book at the Judith Briles Unplugged events. Each summer, Judith Briles Book Marketing Unplugged unfolds over 3 intensive days working with just Judith. You get publishing strategies, author and book platforms, book marketing panache and pizzazz, and authoring tools to take you and your book to rock star success. In the fall and winter, Judith Briles Speaking Unplugged includes Judith as your coach and mentor during 2 powerful days. You will learn how to structure a speech, how to create openings and closings, how to find gigs that pay you and sell your books, and you will get one-on-one coaching. Go to thebookshepherd.com and click on the events tab to learn how to participate at the next Unplugged Workshop event.
Welcome back to your guide to book publishing. Everything you want to know but didn't know what to ask. Coming up, you'll hear more about statistics, scenarios, and strategies on what to do now to get you published. So let's get back to the show. And here again is your host, Dr. Judith Briles.
All right, with me is Lynne Hellerstein. We're actually talking on the side what her next is, and she's hoping that we can figure that out real soon, I think. But that you do have, sometimes we time travel in our heads, which is what Lynne was doing and what she was sharing in her story, is that I actually do this all the time, Lynne. I start visualizing. I don't know how much time I spend. I think it's a long time, and it's maybe just a nanosecond almost.
It is amazing. It's a different whole scale of time and space, really.
Mm-hmm. And also, though, when you come back to let's say reality, you're now going to go back and figure this out, is that this is where you have to start your game plan of what you're going to do. How are you going to does this make sense, what you visualized, and go forward with it? And how are you going to implement it? Which is a kind of discussion I have with all my interns that I work with throughout the year, because they always come in and they tell me, this is what I want to do. I want to learn how to write about this. I need to do that. So what steps do we need to do to get you started down the path? And that's when they get the kind of the deer in the headlight thing. I don't know. So anyway, tell me, what are some of the roadblocks that you found? That were there any that have been repetitive in your writing process, in the publication process, in the marketing process?
Well, what's repetitive is what happens repetitively in my life, certainly. Writing a book really created a lot of having to be vulnerable. And that was something I would also resist, being a woman of a field of mainly men and,
Yep.
and doing work that most people didn't do. I just always had my own drive to be perfect and be better than most because, I was an exception to the rule kind of thing. And that drove me to a state of perfectionism and afraid to share myself and cover up. And that was very exposed in my book writing in that, gosh, this is really different from what most of my own optometry medical people feel and think about. How am I going to be accepted? Am I going to look good? All those thoughts that have been roadblocks for me all my life really get blown up when you're going to put it on paper, and now it's out there forever, And so being vulnerable was something that truly was an issue. I continued to have to battle through it, and it got easier as I started sharing. And if you remember when we started writing some of the book and telling stories about, my own mess ups or problems, whatever, the initial editor said, no, you don't want people to hear bad stuff about you. And your comment was, are you kidding? That's what people love to hear. They love to see you as you are, as a real person, not always being successful and accomplished and all that. And that, the book really helped me move through it, and speaking, really sharing who I am. And what they love most is my screw ups and how I got out of them. And that's really the impact that writing and speaking had on me. And part of that process, besides being vulnerable, is to be okay about asking for help. I knew nothing about book writing, publishing, marketing, whatever, because I could always do it myself kind of person, figure it out. Well, this was outside my league. I didn't know anything about this. And so you made it so easy for me to ask for help, either from you or AuthorU or whomever, that I could do that and get the help I needed and be okay for myself. And I had to learn to let go of, my past ways. And so the roadblocks that we all have in our lives, whether we see them or know them or not, which most of us know them, I think really get flared up when you start writing or speaking, because you're really sharing yourself out there in the public. And you have to find ways to get through it.
Yeah, and I think I want to say this to all of you who are listening, and I think one of the hardest parts, I think, for authors is when they come out of the writing closet, and they really do expose themselves, what they're thinking, what they feel, what's in their heart, and even, all kinds of different things come up. That vulnerability factor is humongous. No one ever told me about that, Lynn. When my first book, I just thought when I wrote my first book, that was it. I was done. No one told me that they bred. I had no idea, but they did. And that no one told me that people would take pot shots at me or at my ideas, or that you would see some really outrageous disagreement that you're thinking, clearly you're not on this planet when you say that. And what I came to realize, and I want all of you who are listening to realize, is that a lot of times criticism that will come at you will come from people who are envious of what you've done because they didn't do it. And I think that's really an important thing for all authors to understand. And just, you just have to keep on trekking. That's what you've got to do in that process, and follow your passion, back to passion again, and what you know. So that's
and
important.
Get support. Get support, a coach, community. When I speak about this, I have a slide with community, and communities in all different places. I mean, whether it's, your religious group, your family, your neighbors, your friends. AuthorU community is a great community. These are people that, all different fields, but what we have in common is books. And it's just been delightful meeting people from all over and helping, receiving help, and community is so important, I think, in helping this process.
Well, I think one of the things that I love and it's really the community thing, is that to really share how important it is to not be the loner, because so many writers choose to be the soloist, and they're solopreneurs, and they're just going to stay in their room or wherever it is that they're working. And that one of the most important things is you got to get out and you got to stretch yourself and get your neck out there, and because you'll find that there are other authors who have been exactly in your spot, and they can help you move out of it if you're in a stuck, or that you've got questions, or whatever it is. It's just smarter to hang out with other people who are on the journey with you. I learned that long ago.
Yeah, and in writing process, that's so true. And what I didn't know at all was, then you have the marketing process. You think you write this book and it's fabulous and everybody should be interested and you should be selling 1 million books. And then you find out that's not really how it works. That somehow, unless you're, a top author that sells just because of their name. Now, I'm really blessed because the book's really about the things I do in my practice. So every patient that's involved in vision therapy gets a copy of the book, and we then have them available for their teachers and their tutors, and so I have a prime way of already marketing my book. I don't even look at marketing; it's really part of the program. I mean, so somewhere, whether it's speaking or niche or whatever, and that usually takes more than you. I mean, that takes some kind of community to help you with the marketing aspect of it.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think one of the biggest struggles that authors have, of course, you're dealing with the Amazon giant, but that getting reviews. They all know that they need to get reviews. How do we get reviews? And it's always an ongoing thing. And Amazon, their little robots have ways to knock out reviews right and left when they come up, if they can figure out you're anywhere connected with the person who has posted the review, even though they have bought the book. And they bought it through Amazon, they still knock them out. So yeah, it's a challenge, and we've come up with it. We've come up with a new way to get around that little animal. But
good.
It took me a while. Literally, when I have gatherings of authors, I will have a stack of books, and I said these books need reviews. And so if you take a book, I'm going to take your name and your email. This is exactly what I do, Lynn. I have them on a grid, and I will follow up in 2 weeks. Have you posted a review? So if they're connected on only social media, the odds are they're going to get booted out. So if they are, step 2 is you write the review and you send it to someone you trust and who's agreed to post the review under their name. They're not connected. Wow. Different name than yours. Better if it's a different city, that would be better too. I mean, that's what I've had to do to get out, because none of my reviews ever get posted.
Interesting. Well, it was different back then, but one of the things that I think is important, and I know it's costly to do a self-published book like this. It's costly, but part of that cost needs to be giving away your book sometimes. And now with social media, you can do it even easier. But I remember when we used to have discussions, somebody said, well, I'm not giving them a free book.
Oh, yeah.
And, at my talks and at my other associations that have auctions and gifts, I am always giving away my books because for me, it's about the bigger brand, not the book. The book's part of the brand. And if you want them to remember you and know you, if you give a book to a coach and all of a sudden he sees these kids that have vision problems, they're going to start talking about that. And so, it's going to be different for everybody, but whatever your brand is, the book is usually only a piece of the brand. And if it means you need that's your nice calling card, so that they'll call you for business or whatever it is. It's a really important thing to think about in the auction. And I know it's costly and you'd rather get paid for that book, but the little you get paid for a book versus expansion of your brand, there's really not even a comparison.
Right. And this is called marketing. So everyone needs to understand that. And you should be giving away books for marketing or positioning or to build yourself from an influence, because you never know, the hands of that book may be a decision maker that could bring in a lot bigger sale to you than you never imagined in the process. Lynne, had, I know we're going to be coming up to our final break here, but you had a saying that I always loved, and it really tied into your primary occupation, where that dealing with vision and vision therapy and just total eye care. But it was 2020 is not perfect vision. Did I say it right?
Yep, sure did.
Okay, so we have 1 minute. Can you kiss on that for a sec? Because I can loop it into publishing.
Sure. I mean, most people think 2020 is perfect, and all that means is you see a letter about an inch high at 20 feet. But there's at least 17 other skills that are important for you to really visually process, to be able to read, to be able to drive, to be able, it's depth perception, eye teaming and focusing. And if only you look for the acuity, the sharpness, you're missing so much else of the world around you. Uh-huh. And too often people, get their school nurse or pediatrician or doctor saying, oh, there's no eye problem, you're 20/20. And you can have double vision, you can have headaches, you can have so many vision problems and be 20/20. So it's really looking to expand what you see beyond just the 20/20. There's so much more out there that has to do with your life and your movement and your thinking, creation, success, accomplishments.
All right. And with that, we'll take our final break. We'll be right back.
This is your guide to book publishing. Everything you want to know but didn't know what to ask. With your host, Dr. Judith Briles. And we'll be right back with more great information right after these.
The book shepherding concept is simple. The publishing world is changing, and so must you. You need an experienced shepherd and guide to collaborate with you as you create, strategize, develop, publish, and achieve your publishing goals. Publishing is riddled with obstacles, sometimes nightmares for the author. You do not need more problems. You want solutions. Dr. Judith Briles will shepherd you through the maze and chaos. At times, she has had to step in and rescue a book that has been sabotaged by a publisher, by a publishing service provider, and sometimes even by the author. If you want author and book success, connect with her today at thebookshepherd.com.
At Total Printing Systems, customer service is our priority. We are located in Southern Illinois. Our employees have an average of 18 years experience and know that customer relationships are important to our continued success. We have been a short-run book printer for nearly 40 years and always stay at the forefront of technology. Our niche is from 1 to 5,000 copies. Today, we offer digital, black and white, and 4-color high-speed inkjet printing, a cost-effective way to introduce color into your short-run titles. We, of course, offer traditional offset printing as well. Bindery is done in-house, from adhesive case binding to PUR perfect binding to mechanical binding of all types, including side sewing. We provide warehousing, kitting, distribution, inventory, inventory management, a new print-on-demand facility, streaming browser-based ebooks, and bookstore. Call us at 1-800-465-5200 for a quote on your next book project. You can also visit our website at www.tps1.com.
Welcome back to your guide to book publishing. Everything you want to know but didn't know what to ask. If you want to write and publish a book, if you want to be successful as an author, your guide to book publishing, everything you want to know but didn't know what to ask, is for you. Stay tuned and you'll hear about statistics, scenarios, and strategies on what to do now to get you published. So let's get back to the show. And here again is your host, Dr. Judith Briles.
All right, our final segment today that I wanted Lynne to share. One of the exercises she did for her, and actually she was doing it in the middle of when we were writing See It, Say It, Do It. So it's really relevant. But what I want to tell you is that I want you to imagine the same thing for you, whatever your journey and quest is right now. With it's writing, it's publishing, maybe it's a marketing endeavor you've got coming on. Maybe it's the next project you're working on, and maybe you didn't know that there was a next project, but maybe we can visualize it a tad. But I wanted Lynne to kind of share the exercise that she went through that I know that you can transition and embrace it and use it on your own. So Lynne, let's talk about it.
Oh, great. It almost calls me to do a visualization with the group.
Ooh.
But I wanted to share, when I was in chapter 5, that was the Say It declaration portion of the book. I couldn't think of any story to put in there. You know, for the visualization, I had so many stories on how to visualize yourself as being strong and successful. I mean, hands-on stories of kids and adults, but the Say It, I didn't have any story. So I remember that my daughter had asked me if I would be interested in walking a marathon. You know, a marathon is 26.2 miles long. And I had never really walked more than 8 miles. But I'm so honored when my adult children ask me to do things. I said, oh, sure, I'll walk a marathon. And I said yes, without even thinking about it. And then I started thinking about it. So the first thing, I'm in the middle of writing my book, and the first thing I did was go to the internet and got a picture of what it looks like to complete the marathon. So I visualized the end result, which is what big businesses do when they build a building or build a project. They see what it is at the end they'd like. And then they usually have some kind of a mission statement and then their action plans. So I have this picture of everybody's arms in their air, and you can picture this with me, and they're looking, they're smiling, they're happy, they're still upright. So I have this great picture of completing the marathon. Then I immediately go to the do it. And this actually represents how I usually handle most issues and problems and things in my life. So I created an action plan, and I would put needs new shoes, by the date, where to go, needs to get into a training program, how long, how far, where to do this. And there was a series, needs to learn how to nourish it takes like 7.5 hours to walk a marathon. So I went through all the action plan. Well, it was the middle of winter here, and I don't walk on the ice, and I don't like walking a treadmill, so I was having a problem training for this marathon. What am I going to do? And so I waited until it was spring, and again, it was June that we were going to walk the rock and roll marathon in Seattle. And I remember on the nice days I'd go out, and I'd see if I could walk maybe 4 or 5 miles. And, after a mile or two, I wasn't tired. I was just bored, so I'd stop. And then I tried to hit the treadmill at the gym. 10, 15 minutes. I'm not tired. I'm bored. And so the first thing I did was get some really great meditation, inspirational books to listen. And as soon as I started listening, I was up to 45 minutes the next day. So it wasn't a matter of physically not being able to do it. It was mentally. And so I started walking. And then I was walking outside one day and trying to do about 4 or 5 miles. And again, it's like dragging my feet. I hate to write. I hate to write. Why did I do this? I hate to write. And it was also, I hate marathons. How am I going to do this? It's going to bother my feet. It's going to bother my digest. It's going to bother everything. And I was in the middle of chapter 5, Say It, and I realized, oh my gosh, if I truly believe in this process of see it, say it, do it, I am not at all involved in the say it piece, which I realized is, when I do things, I'll often jump over to say it, or I'll say yes and mean no, and I'm out of integrity. I see what I like to do, I start doing it, but I have not declared that I can do it. So I'm walking, I said, oh, okay, well, fine, I'm a marathoner. I go, oh, you're not a marathoner. Listen to how you say it. You don't mean you're a marathoner. Well, I don't know.
Exactly.
So I have this whole conversation going back and forth in my head. And then all of a sudden it was like this lightning bolt again, literally. And I hear this, you're a marathoner. And I literally stopped cold, like, where did that voice come from? There was nobody around me. And I, looked around and I realized, oh my gosh, I am a marathoner. I mean, every day's a marathon. I take the kids to school. I work. I bring them home. I cook. We do homework. I write. Life is a marathon. And you know what? I complete it every single day. And realize it doesn't have to be a 26.2 mile marathoner to say that I am a marathoner. And once I declared I am a marathoner, that became the story in the book, and my whole practice and training totally changed. And that's how I really completed the book, once I could really get everything in alignment. And so, I have found, like we mentioned a little bit before, if people don't always go through the process in this order, and they don't have to at all, but if they don't touch on all 3 steps, I find that most of the time you're left hanging of you're just dreaming, or you're just doing busy work and not going anywhere, or you dream and you're afraid to start. And it's finding a way to really go through all 3 of the steps. And when for some people, when it starts with envisioning, it's truly creating a picture that's all about what you want, a picture where you're safe, a picture or a feeling. It can be a feeling, and bring in all the senses. So if you're going to imagine writing a book, I want you to see yourself done, where that book would be, what it would look like, how it would be, what it feels like. You bring in all of the images, the feelings, any sensory smells, touch, the whole sensory system. Because the more you bring in and make it real, the more it's really going to happen. And there are just so many resources to help that happen. But anytime you're stuck, if you can step away from your process and just look at where are you stuck, and just to do it without a good vision and a good declaration is where we often will get tripped up. It's just too hard, too much money, too much time, too much, because we're just entrenched in the do it section, and we're missing the big picture or the declaration piece of it. And so, with that in mind, I encourage everybody to create a vision that is unlimited and come from a place in your mind. We teach our kids this all the time, to breathe, and we go through a breathing exercise, relax, and go to a place where you feel really safe. Safety is important. Safe and comfortable. And it could be in the mountains. It could be in their bed. It could be wherever. And they get to bring in anybody they want to help support them. Kids often bring in their pets. Adults will bring in friends or spouses or whomever, spirits. I mean, it's up to them. And to make these kinds of choices from that safe place and create from that safe place. And when you start doing that, then just be prepared for all the miracles that start happening, be well beyond what you'd ever predict. Because when you come from a place of non-judgment and creation, what you come up with is something that you probably could have never planned by trying to do it. And so you can see I can really get off on this topic, but it's really what my work is. And it started about, way back with just vision of, I've been able to change people's life through helping them change and alter their vision through glasses, through prisms, through therapy. And now all I'm doing is the same work, but just on the inside.
And that is the whole process of really, I think you really nailed it, Lynne, with that you have to declare it. And I think you're right. That was what was missing for you all along, is you didn't declare it. You knew you had to do it, and you were thinking about it. But I think that when you start verbalizing it, not only for yourself to hear, which is essential, but it's for others to also hear, so they can become, I think, your champions as well, and the part of the accountability factor, because I think that's also an important ingredient in this thing.
So true, and I think it really starts with yourself, that you just have to be in alignment and have integrity in the process. And if you've got this background noise or image that you're unsuccessful, you can't do it, I'm too stupid, I don't have enough money, that will destruct you at every stage of the game. And you always wonder, well, see, it happened again. And until you change some of this internal imaging and language that's happening, we all stay stuck.
So that's what we call self-sabotage.
Yeah, that is your book. That is correct.
That's one of my books, right? So
right.
That's by the way from my book, Stop Stabbing Yourself in the Back. But that is what you can easily do, and that's where you can be your failure to complete it or get through it or whatever it is becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. And you don't want to do that, because you can be successful. I believe that.
And it really turns out just like you imagine. I can't do this. It won't work. And guess what? It's exactly how it turns out.
Yeah, and you're right. So, Lynne Hellerstein, thank you so much. I'm going to encourage everyone. I would recommend, I know a lot about these books, but see it, say it, do it. If you've got kiddos or anyone who is challenged, like, they hate homework, they hate fill in the blank, I would really encourage you to just get that book. Amazon's got it. But I would also, in the sports side, the 50 tips to improve your sports performance, absolutely, and expand your vision beyond sight. All highly recommended. And they're just, expand your vision beyond sight is just a little gem. Lynne, thank you so much for being with us today.
Judith, my pleasure, and thank you for really, I would have never gotten there without your assistance. And I totally acknowledge that, and thank you.
I loved being on your journey. Everyone, we'll be back with you next week for another fabulous author and her insight.
Thank you for being a part of Your Guide to Book Publishing. Everything you want to know but didn't know what to ask. With your host, Dr. Judith Briles. Each week, a variety of publishing pros will deliver insights and strategies to take you, the author, to the next level. You'll learn tips and secrets on how to create, strategize, develop, publish, and achieve book publishing success by making one very simple change in your book's journey. How to avoid the publishing predators. How to create an author and book platform that rocks. Learn how to make a living with your words and your books. Learn how to publish a book that has no regrets, and so much more. For more information, check out AuthorU-Your, where authors who want to be seriously successful go. And Judith's website, thebookshepherd.com. Then join us again here next week for more. It's Your Guide to Book Publishing. Everything you want to know but didn't know what to ask. With your host, Dr. Judith Briles. Brought to you by AuthorU and the Book Shepherd. Thursday evenings at 6 p.m. Eastern, 3 p.m. Pacific on the Rockstar Radio Network.